old and new, welcome to Stupid Little Games, a podcast where we talk about all things gaming from the inside out. Each week, I sit down with a guest from various parts of the gaming industry, and we chat about our current obsessions. We tell stories from the project, past or present, if we can talk about them, and you know how that is. Then we'll play a stupid little game that I have written specifically for each guest. I am Jess, your host. Thank you so much for coming back. If this is your first time, welcome to the show. My guest today, I'm so excited about having her on the podcast. I'm super excited. She's a former general manager, among many other things, at CCP Games, which you might know from a really small global sensation known as EVE Online. She's had a stint at numerous environmental growth funds and then startups in Iceland before coming back to the video games industry and becoming a whole-ass CEO of a AAA gaming studio known as Avalanche Studios Group. So please welcome my former boss, but my current friend, Stefanía Halldórsdóttir.
Thank you, Jess. I've been so excited to chat with you today.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. And I'm really excited to have you on because I know you're super busy lady. So yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. How are you? How are things in Stockholm? I know that you're in Stockholm right now.
Oh my God. Stockholm is great. Stockholm is right now, December. It's dark. It's icy. But I like it. I really like it.
Honestly, it's not much better here in Brooklyn. Like right now, I'm looking out the window and when I woke up this morning, I couldn't see out the window because of all the fog and it's kind of chilly and rainy. I can deal with rain. I can deal with snow. I don't like it when it's cold and rainy because it's the worst of both worlds. But you know, it's okay. It's fine. I'm in my house, so it's fine.
Yeah, and it's over here. It's the darkness that people struggle with. Like it's like short day and like a few hours of daylight, and then it gets to you. It's like
yeah.
But you know, then it's gonna be spring again. We're gonna be
spring will always come around. Do you have a sad light, a seasonal affective disorder light?
No, so I used to have it. I have it, and we used it a lot when we lived in Iceland. I lived in Iceland with my whole family, and in the mornings when it was the dark, like when it was super dark, like the three darkest months, I would turn on this light during breakfast, especially for my kids and my teenagers. That I was like, okay, maybe it's going to help them, get like energy out of light,
some vitamin D,
and it works.
Oh,
it
good.
Actually works.
My partner has one in his room. It's a little too bright for me because I get like headaches and things. So, but yeah, I've heard that it works really well. Even here, it started to get dark at around 4:30 or 5. But there, it's only light a couple of hours, right? Maybe starting at like 11 in the morning, and then it gets dark again at like 2 or 3.
And then again, if it's rainy and cloudy, you don't see the sun for days, weeks, months.
Well, come visit me in New York, and then we'll see the sunshine for a couple of hours more.
Yeah.
Well,
love being in New York. Yes.
Yeah, I love it when you come to New York and bring the family when we go to basketball games. So let's get started. Our first segment. I'd love to talk about current obsessions. So what are you playing right now, Stefanía?
So it's really good to talk to me about current obsessions because I've been trying to get out of a long, like many years of obsession about. So I play Clash Royale.
What is that?
Mobile superstar game every day since 2016. So I've been playing that game almost for every day for 8 years. And then I was like, earlier this year, I was like, okay, now I need to find a new one.
Well, what is this game? How do you play?
So it's a game, or it's a mobile game, and you have your small army, and you are supposed to go and occupy and take down the castles from your player.
Right.
So it's a PvP. So it's one against, it's one-on-one, where you just you matched up with someone who's in a similar category as you, and you have several armies, and then you have a clan. I've been in a clan for years. and then you play for your clan. It's a strategic kind of like this. What is it called? Where you have to take down the fort.
Yeah, like the tower defense / tower.
Tower defense. Yeah.
So why do you want to
But
stop?
it's like, sorry?
Why do you want to stop?
I was thinking I should maybe broaden my horizon on mobile games.
Well,
so
that's the great thing about mobile games, though, because I'm guessing you have your commute every day, like when you're going somewhere, like just like we do here in New York. Like I'm on the train. Mobile games are like on the phone are the easiest thing to do, and so I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I was going to ask you if you've had any like current obsessions that you are kind of embarrassed about, because the past couple of days, I've also been addicted to a little mobile game, and I'm very embarrassed about it. And I finished it, thankfully. That way I stopped playing it because it was so addictive. So have you heard of YouTube Playables?
no.
Okay, so no, YouTube.
Now I need to check it out. Jess.
No, don't. Do not. So YouTube has started this thing where they have a little tab of playables where it's like little browser games. And it reminds me of like little Flash games, like Newgrounds games from like 15, 20 years ago. Or those really terrible mobile games that look like scams that you see on Instagram. You know, those like ads that you get that aren't actual games?
Yeah. So what are you doing?
Okay,
there?
it's so dumb. So there's a bunch of them, and I saw some folks on YouTube, because all I watch is YouTube basically. So folks on YouTube were like searching around the YouTube playables because they're like, what is this playables? And there was this one stupid game called Merge Master. And I'm a sucker for merging. I'm a sucker for merging. And basically you have these dinosaurs, and then you get points if you win the battle, and then you get more dinosaurs, and then you merge them, and it is awful. It is awful. It is terrible. It is the dumbest game I've ever seen. It looks like a scam, but since it's on YouTube Playables and I pay for YouTube Premium, there's no ads. So I could just continue to play, and I was like, this is so dumb, but it was so addictive. You basically just play again, and then you get more points, and you can buy more dinosaurs, and then you merge those dinosaurs, and there's like warriors behind them, and you merge the warriors. So I was like, I need to stop this. This is so dumb. This is just siphoning my life force. But then I realized that there's only 9 dinosaurs and only 9 warriors to get. And so I was like, okay, there's an end to this game. So now I need to get all the dinosaurs.
Yeah, now but I think I can help you, Jess. Get out of this.
Well, I got them all. I played for 2 days, and I got every single one of them. And then I was like, I could stop.
Then I have the next one for you.
Oh, God.
So because I, instead of switching to a mobile game, I just added one that I play now on a regular basis. Probably every day, because it's like short play sessions. Like you said, when you're commuting, you
100%. That's the best thing about them. That's the best thing about them.
I love it. It's also a merge game that I'm playing. It's called Merge Mansion.
Yes. So I used to play Merge Mansion. Yeah, because it's got those.
And the story is just so cute. And like grandma is handing you the keys, and you're fixing up the house and the
Didn't they
and
have
the yard and like
didn't they have they had some ads a couple of years ago that went viral because it was like the grandma and she's getting arrested, and there were a couple of different ones, and you're the woman and like you're heartbroken and your grandma's getting arrested, and as she's going away, she puts up her hand, and on her hand she has written like he's not dead or something, like something wild in the ad. But no, I have played that before, and I had to stop because then I started giving them money. And I was like, oh no.
But it's done by a great studio in Helsinki called Metacore, and I know some of them. So it's like I really like this game. But there are other games that I play. As you know, I sometimes go on flights. I'm sometimes in an airplane.
Yeah, sometimes.
Pretty often. And I'm gonna tell you how I sometimes pass my time there.
Yes, please.
I discovered this game. It was years ago. It's a game called it's a story-based game called 80 Days.
80 days.
Yeah, and you're traveling the world in 80 days.
Oh.
Yeah,
like a Jules Verne type of around the world in 80 days type thing?
Yes, it is. So it's Phileas Fogg.
Yeah.
That has like this bat that he can like, it's from the story around the world in 80 days. So it's 1800 something, and it's a steampunk story.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you choose your path through it, and you make your choices, and you can like buy things and sell things in different countries and so on. So I pick this game again and again when I'm on a plane. I love it.
Is it also mobile?
Yeah, it's mobile.
That's
and you can
fantastic.
play it offline.
That's the thing.
Like
because there was like Merge Mansion where for a while you couldn't play it offline. And so I would try to like load it back when I was addicted to that. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago, honestly. Before I would get on the plane, I would try to load it so that I could play as much until it needed to like update for like the next section or something so I could play. But if you could play it offline, that's really cool. I'm going to look it up. It's just called 80 Days.
And it's not a new game. It's an old game. I think it's like, some years ago. And I picked it up. I still have it. I still pick it up on a plane. But then, so the platform I play on at home is PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
I play on Steam, but mostly on PlayStation. And the game that I've been playing right now on PlayStation is Alan Wake 2.
Yeah. Scary, amazing. I haven't played it, but I have watched folks play it, and it looks terrifying.
It's so beautiful.
It looks terrifying, and I love it. I love Remedy. Anything Remedy does, I know is going to make me unsettled.
Yeah, and it's I like the story, and I like it's beautiful and it's fun and everything, and it's horrible it's terrifying at the same time. When you play those horror games, you have to stop, play something else.
Yep, especially if you're like at night in the dark by yourself.
Yep, and I used to play when Resident Evil came out on PlayStation, like PlayStation 1, I played Resident Evil 1. I've never played like Resident Evil again. So I was like, I would really like to look at a game like that. And I'm like, Alan Wake 2.
I love the way in Alan Wake, it's so innovative how you go between the different worlds and you solve kind of the puzzles. Yeah. By going in the different worlds. I love Remedy for that. Remedy is so good at that. Yeah,
it is so good. And then I was in a boss fight the other day, and I was getting a little bit too much because it feels like I'm not getting better at playing games. Feels like I sometimes struggle more.
This is why I don't play the Dark Souls games. This is why I like any Soulsborne. Nah.
So this is probably, I don't know, this is going to surprise you, but actually Dark Souls games are the only games I've ever finished in my life.
That's amazing.
Really? Dark Souls 1, finished that, and I started over again. And Dark Souls 2, I think I finished Dark Souls 2, but it was more of it took longer, I think, because I was on and off because I was just more busy at that time. Yeah.
Well, luckily, there's not really much of a plot you have to keep up with. You're really just going through and trying to kill everything.
You just go through it, and you just stand up and go again, and you lose all your souls, and you go again. You start from scratch.
I want to ask you, because it's an FPS, but we're recording this in the middle of December, so the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle came out last week. Have you heard about this? Have you started playing it? It's an FPS, so I can't really play it. I get headaches from FPSs, but people are raving about how this game makes them feel like they are in the movie, and it's very cool.
Yeah, so I'm not good at FPS, so games with where you're actually with a like Alan Wake and Dark Souls, where that's not really
like the third
FPS.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, that's more my kind of thing. I'm so bad at FPS, but I haven't played it. But I really want to. So sometimes what I do when I want to check out FPS games, I buy them for my kids, have them played.
Yeah.
They're good at FPS. So I have a crowd at home that is happy to show me around in those FPS games. And that's one of the... So I also play Hunter Call of the Wild, the game we make here at Avalanche. And that is like this first person like vision of it. It's not an FPS. It's like a calm, easygoing stealth hunting game. But I can feel that I need to train way more on it.
That's probably a good one to train on, because you don't have like monsters trying to eat you in the woods.
Yes, but you know what? What I managed to do the other day, I since it's just me and you speaking, I can tell you what happened. So I was playing Alan Wake, and I was overwhelmed with it. So I was like, I'm gonna like take like 15 minutes on Hunter Call of the Wild. So it's just like minding my business in the woods, and there is a water buffalo coming my way. It actually ran me over.
Oh no! Did you like die? What happens if you die in Hunter Call of the Wild?
I died. I managed to die in the simulation game by being run over by a water buffalo.
I don't know if we should take you hunting in real life.
Actually, so I do hunt in real life,
cool.
But more like when I'm back home in Iceland, I used to do bird hunting.
Oh,
so
nice.
Not big game.
Yeah.
So maybe I should not go and try to hunt the water buffalo.
You're like walking around a water buffalo's like, I remember you.
I'm gonna run you over again. No, you can actually die in Hunter Call of the Wild. That's an achievement.
Did you? That would be an actual fun achievement for it. Do you get an achievement if you get run over by something?
Now I need to go and feature creep for the Hunter Call of the Wild.
Yeah.
I think you should have an achievement for...
I am the biggest fan of like dubious achievements. Like if you do something that's so like, I would say dumb, or like if I were playing, doing something so dumb, you just get an achievement for it. It makes me so happy, because it's like, oh, well, I'm not the only one that happened to. It's fine. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That is the perfect point to stop for a quick ad break.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, new sponsor alert. This episode is brought to you by Brooklyn indie rock band Social Robot. Their sophomore album Outreach program brings tape deck 80s synthwave vibes as vocalist Bayard Russell sweetly skewers the attention economy and data overload, or so says a Nagamag magazine. So, and by the way, if you've heard the theme music for this podcast, you've already heard Social Robot, and it's very, very cool. I love my theme song. So go to socialrobotmusic.com, or you can search for Social Robot on Apple, Spotify, Napster, LimeWire, or wherever you pirate your favorite music. Now let's get back to the show. And we are back. Stefanía, I want to talk about you, actually. So before we get into talking about you, though, I have two specific questions about Iceland, because you are Icelandic, and you lived in Iceland for most of your life, I'm guessing, before you went off and did all these amazing things that you've done. So two questions about Iceland. First, how do you actually pronounce Bjork's name?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because I know that we Americans or Bjork fans have been mispronouncing it for 30 years, and I know it is not actually pronounced Bjork. So how do you actually pronounce Bjork's name?
Yeah, it is Björk.
Björk?
Björk. Björk.
I mean, it kind of sounds like Bjork, but not.
No, not. But because it's not a Bjork, it's Björk. It's how the Icelandic R is like r, that's hard.
Björk.
And the O with the two dots on top
is
like
because
Björk.
I'm a huge
Björk.
Björk. Am I saying it?
Björk,
It's
yeah,
better. I
yeah.
don't think it's right, but it's better.
Yes.
I've been a fan of hers for, since the 90s. And when I was in Iceland, I actually went to the little punk museum. I think you and I may have talked to this before. It's like in the underground, and it's so nice. It's so small, and part of it's like a bathroom, and it's great. And they talk about Björk a lot, and it's so wonderful. And they have like some jackets of hers, and it's just such a cool little thing. If you ever go to Reykjavik, go to the Icelandic Punk Museum. It's downtown Reykjavik. It's very small. It looks like you're going down into a subway, but it's actually you're going down into the museum. But I saw a thing where someone Icelandic in the 90s was doing an interview, and they were like, "No, you're saying it wrong," and they were trying to get someone to be able to say it properly. And it wasn't Björk that was doing it. It was some I think it was an Icelandic journalist. They were like, "No, you're saying it wrong," but it just never caught on, I guess, because I've always just heard Björk.
Yeah. And of course, when she's an international star.
Mm-hmm.
So like the international starship is also like your name is what it is for the international context. I like that. But this museum that you talk about, it's funny. It used to be one of the few really public toilets in downtown Reykjavik from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, it smells like it too.
Yeah, and they just turned it into a punk museum. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's so small. They even have like a whole setup of drums and like bass and guitars where you could kind of sit and play. And I feel so bad for like the caretaker of the museum, because you could just see his face every time somebody picks up one of the guitars and just starts strumming like crazy. And he's just like, "Oh God.
Oh yeah.
Here we go again. Okay." But no, he was very nice. He was very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the second Icelandic question, what the hell is the deal with Lazytown?
Oh,
do you remember Lazytown?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I worked with a lot of people that were at Lazytown.
Really? Oh my God. I'm so glad I asked you this. So my partner Baird, I'm sorry, I'm getting very excited. My partner Baird is addicted. He's obsessed with watching Lazytown clips. And we've watched a few of the episodes, and it's so wild. I know it's Magnus Scheving, I believe, is So tell me about Lazytown, please.
So it's Lazytown started as Magnus, it's his creative kind of vision. So he wanted to promote a healthy lifestyle to kids and so on. So I think it was a theater,
mm-hmm.
and then they created it into a show, and then it evolved, and this whole the Sportacus character evolved, and Magnus is really he's really fit, and he can do the
things
what is it
he
called?
does. He doesn't walk anywhere. He just does backflips and jumps.
Backflips. Yeah. And he has this very iconic costume.
Yeah, he looks almost like Wario, but fit.
Yeah, but fit. And and then he has this mustache.
Yeah.
You've seen that?
Yeah, it's just straight out.
And and this show was sold all over the world.
Yeah.
And I have and my son, who's born, I have 3 kids, and the middle one is born in 2005, which was a whole crazy town craze in Iceland when he was around 3 or 4. So he used to go to kindergarten every day in the Sportacus outfit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I had to wash it and make sure he could wear it the next day and all if it needed to be washed, but he would wear it. And Árni. Yes.
Yeah, I do.
He's gonna love that I'm telling this story.
Oh, he's gonna kill you and kill me.
Yeah. So, and he also, I painted on him every morning. He was 4. I painted the mustache on him every day.
I love that so much. Please tell me you have photos. I'm not going to put photos of Stefania's children out on the internet. So listeners, I'm sorry, but you have to send me photos when we get off of this because I am obsessed and he's going to be so mad. I love it so much.
So I know that he's going to be fine with me telling this story about him because there are so many funny stories about Árni, as you probably guess.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's wonderful.
He's a fantastic boy. So this was so much fun. Painting a mustache every morning. Him and I in the bathroom, me fixing my face up, and then like I took my eyeliner and like.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked you about this. So for listeners, if you are not aware, Lazytown is a television show. You can find full episodes on YouTube. It's so as Stefanía was saying, so Magnus plays Sportacus, who is kind of a aerobics superhero trying to get the kids. And it's called Lazytown because this little girl named Stephanie, she's new in town. She comes to this town and none of the kids want to go outside and play. They're all like, they just want to play video games, which I'm like, cool, yay, video games. But all of the kids, so the only real people in this show is Magnus, the little girl Stephanie, who was like, she was a teenager at the time, but like a young teenager who was also very good at aerobics and tumbling and doing all kinds of stuff. And the villain was Robbie Rotten. And this was the greatest villain of any children's show I've ever seen in my entire life. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, please look up Lazytown. It became an international sensation, but I didn't realize until recently that it started as an Icelandic show.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's and so many Icelandic people that I know worked on this show and they recorded it in Iceland and they sold it to so many TV stations.
That's amazing.
Like it was a thing in South America, like everywhere.
Well, apparently, have you seen any of the Terrifier movies? Have you heard of Terrifier? So Terrifier is a horror movie series. There's 3 of them now where this extremely, I mean, it's called Terrifier. This like supernatural being called Art the Clown. Is like the murderous. He murders people in terrible, awful ways. But it is a horror, like shock horror, gory movie. But I read recently that Art the Clown was one of the understudies for Robbie Rotten on Lazytown.
Oh, really?
So Art the Clown doesn't speak. He mimes everything that he needs to do, and you can see it in his face. And he said that he learned all of that from the guy who played Robbie Rotten on Lazytown. And he was one of the backups. And I was just thinking about Art the Clown, like following around Robbie Rotten made me really happy.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's one of the best villain when you say it, that I've seen in a children's play.
It's so good.
Is so good. And he was such a good actor.
Yeah.
Stefan,
also extremely like athletic. And even though he was trying to give candy to all the kids, also all of the children in this show were puppets. So and they were very weird puppets. So please watch this show. Okay. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about Lazytown, but I'm so glad that I asked you because thinking about your son as a little Sportacus.
Yeah, we could talk about Lazytown for time.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked you. Okay, so let's get to actually talking about you because I think you're a pretty remarkable lady. I want to get into being the CEO, like being a lady CEO of a AAA gaming company in just a second. But how did you get into gaming? Because you've been doing some pretty cool stuff in gaming for a really long time.
Yeah, that is so. I got into gaming when I started working at CCP Games in 2010. So I had been I was in science and technology for 10 years, where I'd been working on different kind of international projects, business intelligence projects, building databases and so on. So I had some solid tech background when I went into gaming. And there was a position at CCP. There was a content and game design manager. And for me, there was, having been a lot in technology, I wanted to expand over into creative.
Cool, yeah.
I so wanted to get into how do you make games and how do you design games and so on. So I came into CCP on with a lot of experience in managing big projects, not as a gaming expertise or, I was not an expert in creating games in any way. But I ended up being on the product team, and then I was heading EVE Online. And then at some point, several years in, we decided to go to Shanghai, where CCP has office, and EVE Online is a single shared server game, massively multiplayer online game on a single shared server, except in China there is a separate server. Oh. So we had kind of a separate business, and we had a publisher in China, and we wanted to work closer with the publisher. So I moved over there. My husband also worked with CCP games. He still works with CCP.
Oh, right.
At CCP, and both of us moved for our projects to Shanghai with 3 kids, all 3 kids. So it was like a whole family relocating to Shanghai.
And your kids were pretty young at this point, right? So not even just moving with kids, but moving with young children.
Yeah. So the youngest one, he was 1.5. And awesome. So it was and we stayed there for 3 years. So that's the story of that. But then I got into games kind of from there was someone at CCP who knew that I'd been managing big projects, and they asked me if I would apply. I was like, I would never have gotten the idea. But then I got super excited about this, and getting the job was like, yes, now I can make because I'm passionate about games.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as you know, it's super fun.
Yeah, it gets you. It gets its hooks into you, because I got into games also because I was in tech, because I worked for Stack Overflow for years, and then I was working. Sorry, there's I don't know if you can hear the sirens behind me, but New York is New Yorking. It's fine. But I worked for tech for a while here in New York, but I've always just been into games, and I wanted to do something creative. And I was like, oh, this is perfect, because it's creative, you're making something, but it's also tech, and it's also working with engineers, and engineers have their own language, especially when you're trying to produce stuff from engineers. And so it was great. And now I'm I just want to make games for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I find that this is creating, it's creating entertainment and product, and combining so many disciplines, and you have you have to think about the audience the whole time. You have to be very focused on what is it that people are up for now, and I really like that dynamic. I find that such an interesting and dynamic.
How do you, because especially as the head of a company, and you've been head of projects for a very long time, how do you think about the future? Because don't you kind of have to have not only the 30,000 feet sort of overview of everything, you also have to think about, okay, what's happening in 3 to 5 years, and how am I getting in on that literally right now, or 5-6 years ago, maybe?
Yeah. So before I joined Avalanche last year, I was heading a VC fund, as you mentioned in the beginning, and that was also the whole thing. How do you really predict the future?
Yeah,
you can't. And you can't. For me, it was always about, and still is, if we can only onboard what is happening around us right now, and if we can keep an eye on that, that's kind of, for me, as far as you can get in predicting the future. But then it's also how we have started to work here at Avalanche more and more, is that we are trying to validate our ideas way more at the beginning. And we start way earlier to do play tests, see what sticks with people, see what feedback we get back, and so on. So we have started to work with this unpredictability in a structured way. And I think that's the confidence that I have, is that if we can always get better at listening to and seeing what our players want and what they are actually doing, that's so valuable. And having been running, when I was working on EVE Online, it's a live game that is actually true to the live concept, everything about it.
Yeah.
So you are always seeing emergent behavior.
Yeah.
In the game, and you're onboarding those learnings, and it doesn't work to think you know better all the time. You have to combine it. You have to be okay, wait, what was the intended thing? What did people then do out of it? And what did they hate and why did they hate it? What did they love and why?
EVE Online has, I've never actually played EVE Online. I just want to put this out there because I'm sure folks that might be listening that did play EVE Online, I'm not trying to say I know a lot about it, but I have read, usually when you see stuff on the news or even in gaming news, because gaming news sites about EVE Online, it's usually about some other big scandal that has happened because of the players. Not necessarily something that CCP did, but I even as I was looking for things to talk about for this podcast, there's this scammer, player scammer, took trillions of dollars worth of in-game currency from his entire network and just it's wild to me. I was just holy cow. And some of the biggest battles and biggest wars have happened in EVE Online. It's between the different, are they factions? They're not factions.
It's corporations and alliances.
Yeah. It's wild, and it's been going for a really long time. Was that fun to sit there and watch? And when did you have to get involved?
Oh, yeah, and this is a point that is so interesting about EVE Online. Like you said, you when you look this up, it's all about the players.
Yeah.
And the players are making the headlines.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that's the part that I enjoyed a lot. And we were in very much in communication with the players. And the thing is, the players know your game better than you do.
Yeah.
Normally. And that's something we as developers, we need to take into account sometimes. So I had a lot of fun working in this environment. And sometimes we would not necessarily get that involved in all this drama. We got involved in creating the world and making sure that systems are in place of the anti-cheating and all of that. But the world itself is so rich with economy and mining and corporations and factional warfares and all of that. So
yeah, it's wild kind of reading about it because it's almost like you're reading an alternate reality of things that actually happened.
Yeah.
But it's no, it's even in EVE Online, but it's such a fleshed out world, and I think it's been going for such a long time that there are generations of factions, generations of alliances, and just history and lore that goes back so long in the game. It's really cool. The world that was built was really well done.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's also so cool that it's more than a game to people, and it's not only an entertainment and pastime. It's people form friendships, and there is so much more to it. And I think that's also what I really like about working in games, is that we have always, as humans, we've always played games, and games have always connected us. And I think we need it even more than ever now to connect over games.
I wonder, speaking of connecting over games, I'm sure you've heard about the Among Us being brought up with the CEO healthcare shooter, and I feel so bad for the Among Us community managers and the folks that I'm sure that journalists and newsrooms are reaching out to them, and they're what is this game and why was this shooter playing it, when it's Among Us is, they're saying that it's an assassination simulator, and it's that's not what it is. No. It's one of the most simple dumbest games that became popular during the pandemic because people could talk to their friends, and it's, oh man, it's so funny, so funny.
Yeah, I think there's and that's just my opinion, there's so much undeserved stigma
Yeah.
on a lot of games and gaming.
Assassination simulator. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
funny. So you before getting into games, you worked with like environmental funds. Is that right in Iceland and startups and things?
Yeah. So before I joined Avalanche, I was actually running a VC fund, and that VC fund was investing in sustainability solutions.
Gotcha.
Both environmental sustainability solutions, but also like social impact solutions. And the strategy of the fund was that in a changing world, then in 10 years, we will all have to think differently about investments. Our investments will have to be sustainable to survive and get the return on investment. So I was working on that fund with one of the big private equity companies in Iceland.
Iceland is kind of at the forefront of the world, right, in sustainability. If I'm not mistaken, because especially when it comes to like the energy, all energy is like thermal energy, right?
That's right. It's so all the energy produced in Iceland is renewable. It's a lot of hydropower energy in the system, but it's also the geothermal heat. We heat the houses not with electricity, but with the geothermal heat. So you just get the like hot water out of the earth. That's why every small town has a warm swimming pool.
Oh, that's so cool.
Hot tubs. It's so nice. That's the best. That's the best thing about Iceland. It's the hot water in the swimming pools.
Anyone that I know from Iceland just fucking loves Iceland. And I've only been once, and I definitely want to go back, but I do have friends that go like once a year because they love it so much. And I could see why. Like it has some of the highest rate of equality in the world. It had like the first openly gay prime minister, if I'm not mistaken. Marriage equality was one of the first in the world. Like it's just gender parity and pay parity is one of the like most equal in the world. And I was just like, fuck, Icelanders got it together. That's amazing.
It's funny when you work there like I do, you're always like, no, we're not there yet. Like there is still some work to be done. But just recently there was a female president elected the second time.
Wow, that sounds nice. What's that like?
Like I just have to say I'm a fan. She's just so amazing.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
This is after the US election, like a month after the US election. So I'm so jealous.
It still hurts.
Yeah.
I know.
It very much does.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's Iceland is kind of with both this environmental like at the forefront, and you don't realize it when you're over there. You're like, okay, this is there are some things to improve and so on, and then you are in the international environment and you're like, now I remember. It's kind of strange to have a even like I'm used like when I was growing up, head of state president was a woman in Iceland, and I think it changed a lot for us as girls growing up in a country with like a very respected woman as the head of our country.
Yeah, I bet it would.
Like it really did, and you don't really you don't understand it when you're there how much of a privilege that is for a girl to grow up in that kind of environment where this is just normal.
Yeah. And then you go to the rest of not the entire rest of the world, but places like the US, where it's still 2024 and we've never had a woman president. We just got our first woman vice president, and I'm sad. Now I'm sad. But I think it mattered a lot for me to grow up in this environment, and also we've had women CEOs in some companies for some time.
And like when I was studying, I was looking up to those women. So it's really strange to be like one of those women now that other people look up to.
Absolutely.
I consider myself to be very fortunate to be able to, like, if I can be a role model for women, like.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I don't have the exact number, but I know that the amount of women running AAA studios, video gaming studios, is very small. Do you all have like a little club or like a little group chat that you all chat? Because it's probably aren't very many of you.
Right, but we should. But there are, like, here in Stockholm, we have several women as the heading studios, which is great.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I've met with most of them, and they're really cool. So I maybe we should have a chat room.
Yeah, you need the group chat. Do it on Signal though, because you don't want anybody like grabbing your group chat. So being the head of and the first woman CEO of Avalanche, because there's always been men up to this. So what sort of advice would you have for other ladies who are trying to maybe not just trying to be CEOs, but just trying to be managers, trying to head up their departments, trying to get their employees to take them to like respect them and listen to them, because sometimes it's really hard, and people and these folks that aren't that didn't grow up trained as women, I would say. So like women and femme folks don't even see it when it's you get talked over in a meeting, or someone repeats your idea and everybody acts like it's their idea, even though you said it like 10 minutes ago, but no one was really listening to you. Or if you're in a meeting and you get asked to take notes, even though you're one of the other producers that are there to, things like that. Like, what sort of advice would you have for those ladies that might be listening?
So I've been, before I joined CCP, I was in tech and science. So I've been working in those kind of environments for a very long time. And it's always difficult to give, like, here is one advice, and it's a very common thing to say, oh, women just have to be more assertive. Women just have to, they have to just train. Women just have to be this and that. And like, there are so many of those advices out there for women. Just have to be a little bit more of something and less of something.
The lean in philosophy.
Yeah. And then they need to just lean in, and it's like, it's putting all the burden on us.
Yeah, sure does.
And what I did, and I don't know if it works for other people, but long time ago, I just accepted this. It's not that I accepted and succumbed to it. It's not like I decided not to get overly frustrated, because when I got overly frustrated with it, it just didn't help me anyway.
Right.
So when I encountered those things that would happen, of course, like all the things you were describing, I would tell myself, okay, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
This is how the world is. This is the game we are playing. Okay, I get it. It's not about me. So for me, it's always been about picking myself up again. And then, like, some of the things that have really, like, have sometimes been really hurtful is like when you're a leader and you're doing things, and then you hear from people like, oh, like someone says, oh, and you hear about it, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing, and so on. It's so easy to say that about a woman, that she doesn't have a plan, she doesn't have an agenda.
Yeah.
I used to get like that. Used to hurt me a lot, because it's like, I know what I'm doing, and then it was like at some point someone said, oh, why is there a woman in charge here? She doesn't even play games. And I was like, I still do. And then I was like, I don't want to be this person who always goes in and like, but I do, like, trying to justify myself. So I was like, okay, I need to find ways for myself to pick myself up. So being resilient and like, okay, there was a setback, and there will always be a setback, and there will always be challenges, and there will always be some kind of pushing people around. Like, but it's like, okay, I just want to pick myself up again and again because I have time. I'm fine. I can try to continue to make a positive impact where I am at, try to support people, create great teams, making the right decisions, involving people in that decision making, making sure that we get a good outcome for everyone. And then, and I don't know, it works for me now, is the lifting other women up and lifting people up around you.
Yeah.
So
that is so important. It's like bring people with you. Bring more people with you.
Bring people with you, and then and I can tell you sometimes when I've felt like, okay, like a lot of things are too kind of overwhelming or difficult or something, then I've taken the focus like from what I'm doing, and I was like, okay, can I find someone around me who's doing great? And yes, there is someone. It's like, Jess, she's doing great. Okay, then I can go and talk to you and tell you how much I appreciate all the great things you do. And that always helps me get back on my feet.
That's a really good point.
That's my strategy, kind of.
I feel like it's a good strategy because it kind of takes at least some of the burden and guilt off of yourself for the way the world treats you. Yeah. You know, and I'm sure that you've had those conversations with people, as I have, like trying to make things better for other people or calling people out on some things that they do. And like, for instance, I'm not going to say anyone's name on the podcast, but someone that you and I both know, we were having conversation and he was just like, I still say guys everywhere and I don't see why I don't have to say guys. Like, I don't think of it as like a gendered thing. And I just call everybody guys and I've done it forever. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I get that. And I don't think anybody's going to be mad at you for saying guys. But if somebody asked you how many guys you've slept with, I don't think you would see it as ungendered.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe and this was a straight man that I was talking to. So it's like for you see it as ungendered when you're talking to a group of people with femme folks in the room and just saying guys, you don't see it, but those people do, and that's just like a small thing, and it's and having those conversations, I'm sure we've both, but it still takes the burden off of yourself of being like, this isn't my fault, I think is probably the best thing. This isn't me being stupid and people saying that, I should take notes in this meeting because I'm not capable. I'm not as capable as everyone else. This is like a systemic thing, and that's why they just expect me to take notes. And you just say, actually, I've said this many times before. I am terrible at taking notes, which is true. I'm terrible at taking notes. So I don't think I'm the best person to do this. How about you? The person who is telling me to take notes. I think you should do this because I am terrible at it. I mean, the little ways we push back every day.
Yeah. And I think also, and I've become also better at kind of setting boundaries. Like you're talking about, saying, hey, like I don't feel included if you always say guys. And I used to do this myself, and then I realized, like, how crazy is this? You know, it's just, it doesn't feel right. And I know that I've been women in gaming companies who've said to their peers, I don't feel included. And it's like, okay, I hear you. And I feel like this has changed a lot in the past years, is that it's kind of okay to listen to people who don't feel included. It doesn't hurt. It's not going to be, nothing is going to be taken away from us if we listen to people and include them. It's actually adding something valuable to be inclusive. So I see it as that. If like, I get it that people sometimes don't want to change the ways or the way they talk, and they maybe have difficulties doing that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but they're getting left behind. You know, they're being thought of as like the dinosaurs, you know, like the people that that folks are really, the leaders that people are really looking up to are really fostering an inclusive environment. And I have a really good example of this, actually. So I just got back from PAX Unplugged. It was a convention in Philadelphia, and PAX Unplugged is part of the PAX convention system. There's PAX East and PAX West, which are video game focused, done by Penny Arcade. And then PAX Unplugged is the TTRPG, like tabletop gaming and board game centric one in Philly. So I just got back from that. And I was actually having a conversation with a new friend that I met there. Shout out to Aaron. And talking about why PAX is so much nicer than Gen Con. And Gen Con is a TTRPG, the OG TTRPG convention. It happens in Indiana. It's been going on forever. And it's kind of like the old school, like it's been going on a really long time. PAX is so much more inclusive than Gen Con. And it's because it started with inclusivity as part of its charter, basically. So
Okay.
it started thinking about it,
Interesting.
and it started with being like, we are not going to discriminate. And when I tell you PAX is like one of the nicest conventions I've ever been to, it is so inclusive of queer and trans and just like the non-binary gamers. It reaches out specifically to like Black gamers. It reaches out to lots and lots of demographics that are underrepresented in the space, and they specifically invite them to the table and make it an inclusive space so that they feel safe to come. So because there's lots of different levels of that. Like you can invite somebody, but if they don't feel safe coming to your table, then they're not going to do it, and understandably so. So it is the best place. And Gen Con is kind of thought of a bit as like the old guard. And like, because Gen Con had these things they used to call them girlfriend classes. And they were craft. Yeah. It's not so much better now. So it was called like girlfriend classes, and they were like dance classes and crafting and things like that for you to do while your boyfriend or husband is playing D&D. And this is how it was marketed, as like, these are your girlfriend, or these are, it was called girlfriend or wife. So they changed it, and they were like, oh, well, I guess we're being kind of archaic. So then they called them spouse classes. to try and take out the like sexism of it all. But it's still like, I want to do these crafts and things, but I also want to play games. And all the people that I would be in some of these classes with, like, they all had a game right after that or right before. It was just something else to do that's fun. And it's not just like, oh, here's what the gamers do and here's what the non-gamers do. And that was ingrained in their like DNA, basically. PAX is not like that. And we have to foster those types of things in games as well. Like I'm talking about like tabletop gaming, but video games is the same way, and it should be the same way. Like we need to put in our charters that everyone is welcome to play our games and invite them and make it a safe space for them to play.
Yeah. And I and it's also about like how you market games and consoles and so on. So when I was a kid, I was lucky enough that my parents bought the Sinclair Spectrum.
Oh,
my
cool.
favorite gaming device of all times. And they bought it for me and my brother because they, like, at that point, it was not like, boys just play video games. It was before everyone put, like, I don't know if it was then categorized in this way.
In the 90s is when they really started just like, gaming is for boys. We are putting all the naked or semi-naked ladies on the marketing, and like boys play games and girls want Polly Pocket. You know, that was in the 80s. It was very different. In the 90s, it became that whole thing.
Yeah, maybe exactly, because when you were saying this, I was thinking about this, how you like how for example the first gaming consoles were marketed for both genders.
Mm-hmm.
And I played, like, I played a lot of games on our Simpler Spectrum. I had it with my brother, and we played a lot together. And we also we programmed on this
That's
on the
awesome.
Simpler Spectrum together as well. So I had a really really good time as a child playing games. And I feel like we are taking something away from kids if we continue to categorize it like this. And I think also, like you're saying, with the inclusion, it's so important, for example, in a company like ours, that people can bring their authenticity to work.
Yeah.
Because we want to be a company that is authentic. We want our games to be authentic. We want to understand our player communities and be authentic to them. So for me, it's really important that we work with inclusivity. It's a business strategy in a way.
Yeah, well, diverse game devs make diverse games for diverse players. I don't think it's that complicated. I mean, it's obviously more complicated than that, especially when you think about trying to tear down a lot of the ingrained sexism and racism in video games. But at its heart, more diverse game devs make more diverse games for more diverse players. More diverse players means more players, and it means more games being bought for your company.
Yeah, and of course, at the heart of this is always you are creating fun games for a community. You are there has to be this fun.
Yeah.
And finding the fun is something that diverse teams can do, and I think that's where we are all heading, and it's gonna add something for everyone.
Well, I mean, that's why we're in games, right? We just want to make fun stuff for people to do. Tell fun stories, go race and whatever you like to do. Just something fun for you to do, and think fondly on the games years later. That's one of the things I want to make a game that years later, even when people aren't playing it anymore, I want people to be like, oh, I remember that game. That game was really fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's, I don't know. That's
kind
of like the pie in the sky of I just want to make fun things for people.
That so many people can enjoy all around the world.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good dream.
That's a good dream.
Good aspiration.
I want to be cognizant of your time. So I want to get to your stupid little game, which I'm very excited about, and I'm gonna try to say things properly.
Okay.
So your stupid little game, Stefanía, is called Satt eta ósatt.
Okay. So we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I hope that I said that perfectly. Satt eta ósatt, meaning
you are
true or
so
false.
good at pronouncing this. Satt eta ósatt. Absolutely.
True. So it's true or false. So I have some facts, quote unquote facts about Iceland that might be true and they might be false. So I want you to tell me whether they are true or false. And then we will talk about it. So,
and you think I will know every corner of this island?
Maybe.
And okay.
Maybe it's okay if you don't. It's absolutely okay if you don't, because we're all going to learn something. I always joke that this is actually an educational podcast underneath everything, underneath all the stupidity and cursing and video games. Is I'm trying to teach the public something here. So, Satt eta ósatt.
I'm just gonna plug the previous episodes have been great, and I love the stupid little games you've been playing with people.
I'm so glad. I knew as soon as I was oh, I'm gonna have Stefanía on the podcast, Oh, I'm gonna do like something about Iceland, and because I love Iceland, and I look at Iceland as this like magical place. If you've ever been to, any of our listeners have ever been to Iceland, which I'm sure a lot of you have, it's such a magical, wonderful place. And I remember one of my favorite things is just tooling around Reykjavik on the little scooters that you just get a little app, and like they have the like bird scooters in San Francisco. They have them here in New York too. Or they were going to have them in New York. I actually bought a little scooter when I got back to New York because I had so much fun tooling around Reykjavik on the little scooters. And it's just great. Just everybody should go to Iceland, go to Reykjavik. It's a magical place.
I used to, when I was working downtown Reykjavik, I used to scoot between meetings sometimes on the scooter.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, because you have the little app, and then you use the scooter, and then you just leave it in front of where you're going. Because Reykjavik isn't. I mean, I live in New York, so it's a big city. Reykjavik compared to New York is a very small city, and you can kind of tool around 15 minutes to get from one side of Reykjavik to the other on one of the little scooters. But it's still the biggest city in Iceland. But it's everybody go to Iceland. It's great. It's wonderful. Okay, so Satt eða ósatt. Am I saying that right?
Yes, you're saying it right. Satt eða ósatt. You're really good at this.
Because Icelandic pronunciation is very hard for me. So I'm excited that I said it right. So okay, so Satt eða ósatt. More books are published in Iceland per capita than anywhere else in the world.
Satt.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true.
Yeah. It's so per capita. So there's, I think, like 320,000 people in Iceland. So more than 1,000 books are published per year in Iceland. It's wild.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of a Christmas tradition that we like getting books for Christmas gifts. And I always get books for Christmas, and I'm looking so much forward to Christmas because I know some of my families and they better. So, are gonna send me some books for Christmas gifts, and I'm already like, yes.
Yeah, when I was reading about this, so many are published in like November and early December, so they can be given as Christmas gifts.
Yeah. It's we call it actually the Christmas book Avalanche.
Oh wow, that's right.
That is happening over November and December, and the best part about like we celebrate on the 24th in the evening, and then after like opening all the gifts and eating a lot of food and everything, you just lay down with chocolate and book.
Oh, that's wonderful. That sounds so nice.
I love it.
And I think that I was reading that over 50% of Icelanders read like a book a month.
Yeah.
And it's just like
probably still right, yeah.
Wow. I just think that's really cool. That's really, really, really cool. Okay, you got that one right.
Yep.
So okay, this is always a myth that I heard. So I want to know if it's true or
can I jump the queue now?
Yeah.
Are you gonna ask about the dating app?
Yes.
Jess, I always get this question. I'm going to allow you to carry on with your question.
So it's always a myth that I heard, and I'm like, oh, so yeah, like there's an Icelandic dating app that help users avoid dating their relatives.
So, as I have not dated for a very long time because I've been married for over 20 years. So we have a database that has like all the Icelandic folks in there. And I can query that database from my phone on like how I am related to a person. So I can actually put in my husband's name, he's Icelandic, and it would tell me my ancestors, his ancestors, and then I will see to what grade we are
and related. Doesn't it like go back to the Middle Ages or something? Like it goes way back.
Goes way back. Like it goes back to like, I think even before Middle Ages. It's like goes way back. And it's a genetic database, but it's like the older information is got from like church books. So people were just registered. When you have such a few people, like you end up all being related, but in like, back. So I hope people are using this for dating.
Yeah, well, it says that it uses, so this was a true thing, as you have said, and it's called Icelandic.
Right?
Icelandic.
Yeah.
It uses that database. That's what the app is called, and you could just make sure that you're not dating a close cousin. I'm sure that because everyone in the world, if we go back far enough, we're all, I think, related to Charlemagne or something like that. So I'm sure that everyone in Iceland, if you go back way far back, everyone is somehow related. But I think just to make sure you're not first or second cousins.
Yeah, and most of the people I can trace back to like 7th or 8th generation.
That's cool.
Yeah. But I was not worried about dating anyone who is related to me because I know all of them. But like, my family is like I have a big family. My grandmother had like 14 siblings. They were 15, and I know I know all of their descendants. So we used to meet every year. Like this is so I knew everyone. So I wasn't worried about this. I would never have like needed a dating app, but I guess people do.
I guess so, yeah.
In some cases, of course they do.
And it would suck if you were like talking to someone and then you go to the family reunion and they just kind of show up and like, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, Ernie is my uncle. And it's like, oh shit, because Ernie is my dad.
Yeah. People would like to avoid that, I guess.
See, you're doing great. This is you're 2 for 2 so far. Okay, so Iceland is Satt eða ósatt. Iceland is one of the very few places on Earth with no mosquitoes.
So, Satt.
Yeah, it's also true.
Yeah, true.
You might have a pattern here of things being true, but just because Iceland has such amazing facts. So yeah, that's true. Like the climate is apparently too unstable for mosquitoes to actually breed because it gets really hot and really or not hot, but like it'll get cold and then it'll not be cold and then it'll get really cold, so they can't actually propagate a species.
Yeah, but we have those tiny flies that bite that you call in Sweden, you call it mugga, I think. Like, there are like tiny flies that bite. It's not mosquitoes, but I'm not really like...
Maybe it's like little gnats?
There are them. I don't know. Yeah. There is like... It's called me in Icelandic. And it's those tiny black flies. They bite.
Another place that doesn't have any mosquitoes, I think, is Cuba. Because they literally killed all of the mosquitoes. It was a completely different reason. Like they don't have mosquitoes, but they wiped out all of the mosquitoes with pesticides. And so mosquitoes just do not live there. And if there's any sort of mosquitoes found anywhere, they annihilate the mosquitoes.
Okay. I've been to Cuba. I didn't know about this. I should just go to Cuba because I'm allergic to the mosquito bites.
Oh,
like
so many
people.
Yeah, me too.
I think.
Me too.
Like, yeah.
And I grew up in South Carolina where it's very hot and very humid. So just mosquitoes everywhere. Just everywhere.
Nightmare.
Yeah, it was awful. And we also had horseflies, like huge horseflies, and like they're huge. And they would also bite, which was fun. Speaking of,
you would do great in Iceland.
I would do great at Iceland. The more I learn about Iceland, I'm just like, maybe I should
exactly.
just move to Iceland.
You would fit right in.
I love Iceland so much. Oh my gosh. Speaking of horseflies, so Satt eða ósatt, Icelandic horses have 2 additional gaits than any other horse breed in the world. I
think they have at least 1. I don't know if it's 2. I'm going to say Satt.
Yes. So yes, that's also true. As I learned about, so when I was in Iceland, I met some Icelandic horses and they were wonderful and they're so beautiful. But I learned that you cannot call them ponies. Like you do not call them ponies. It is a great insult.
Yeah, it's a great insult. So they are not as big as many of the other horse races, but they are sturdy.
Yeah.
And they have this extra like, what do you call it?
So there's two. So in addition to like the walk, the trot, and the gallop, which all horses have, it's called tolt.
Tolt, yeah.
And flying pace.
Yeah, the flying pace. Okay.
And both of these are really
tolt and skate. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, both of these are extremely smooth. So like the rider hardly moves when they're on the horse, and like tolt is kind of a jog, but it's just so smooth. And then flying pace is like a run, and the rider's just sitting there like they're in a car or something. It's wild. I love the horses. And apparently, this was going to be another question, but I rather ask this one about the horses. If a horse leaves Iceland, it can never come back, because Icelandic horses are pure breed.
Yeah.
To the point that they don't even need vaccines.
Yeah. And also, Iceland is very protective of not getting any viruses or bacteria or something that the Icelandic horse cannot handle. So,
because it would just wipe out the full population really quickly. Yeah. If you, I also saw, I was watching a little video about these gaits last night, because I was like, why do Icelandic horses have this? But it's genetic. Yeah. It's apparently genetic.
It's very interesting. And it's getting like touched, training that touched into them I've heard is not easy. But I've like, when I was growing up, my grandfather had horses. And I used to do, I went to a course of riding course and so on in the Westfjords where I grew up. And I was always trying to get my horse to do tolt, but he wouldn't.
You had stubborn horses?
Yeah, I had a dumb horse. It was old, but I loved him. He had his flaws.
As we all do, I would probably also be a stubborn horse, especially at my age.
He was so stubborn. Yeah.
But I was talking with, I think it was our guide, because we did like a full guide, and that's how we met the horses. He said if you call, especially because they're smaller than some of the European horses, but if you call them ponies, it's a great insult, because they are not ponies. They are horses. And
they're horses.
And he said that if you really want to insult an Icelandic man, you call him a pony.
Yeah.
I was like, it was like you could get like in a huge fight if you, because apparently you say like someone is like strong as an Icelandic horse is a compliment. So that if you call them a pony, and I was just like, that's funny. I'm just gonna start calling dudes ponies when I want to piss them off. It's like, well, you're just a sweet little pony.
It's a pony. You're gonna be like, and what's next, Jess?
So you're like,
what comes after that?
Never mind. Okay, so let's see. Iceland was the inspiration for the world's most popular board game, Settlers of Catan. Satt or the ósatt?
Ósatt.
No, it's true.
It's true. Oh, damn. I was like, I played a lot of Catan, and I always thought it was more like, France or Spain in the Middle Ages. Apparently,
Klaus Teuber, which is the game's creator, he was inspired by the history of Iceland and the Vikings. And so he made Settlers of Catan based on like Viking history, apparently.
Okay. That's good to know. I will, next time I play Settlers of Catan, I will think about this. But what probably threw me off is that they are growing wheat.
Oh, and there's no wheat in Iceland, right?
Probably is something. Maybe they had wheat, but Iceland doesn't have a lot of growing things. Yeah,
it's more like it's a little cold.
But it's more like grass and sheep. So I like that. Now I need to take a second look at Settlers of Catan.
And sheep everywhere. When I was in Iceland, we were told that like the most dangerous animal in Iceland is the sheep, because they just roam and they'll get in front of your cars and things. Yeah. And so people get into accidents with the sheep.
Yeah. You're trying to steer away from a sheep. That's rather dangerous.
Because they just kind of wander, right?
Yeah. They just like they just wander around over the summer, and then you have to herd them in September back to the farm.
I love Iceland. I think I do. I need to be in Iceland.
Yeah, I think I I could bring you in on some sheep herding. I used to do that myself. I grew up in the countryside, so I know a lot of people with sheep.
Honestly, that
So I
sounds
do
so
sheep herding.
nice. That sounds so nice. It's like I'm no longer gonna be a game dev. I'm just gonna go start a farm in
Herd sheep.
Iceland. It's kind of like the equivalent of like um moving to Portland and starting a petting zoo.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like everybody's moving to Portland, Oregon, and starting a petting zoo in overalls. Here's one. Satt ósatt, there were no television broadcasts on Thursdays until 1986.
Oh, this is so true.
Tell me
Oh
why.
my God.
Tell
Oh.
me why.
So I grew up with no television on Thursdays. That's just how things were. And when we got like television on Thursdays, we were like, oh, so you can have television on Thursdays. I didn't know that.
So it was because like there was like one major station and they just didn't broadcast anything on Thursdays, right?
Yeah, it was like it was the broadcast station of the I don't know, the state broadcast station, and they did not broadcast on Thursdays.
And apparently they also went on vacation in July. So there was just
nothing
there
was no television in July either.
I mean, I think that's kind of great because it's like, oh, right, well, I'm going outside to hang out, especially in July because it's so nice in Iceland in July. And I'm
that's
gonna go
the thing.
outside.
You really don't need television in July. It's the month where you're supposed to like spend like all your days outside because it's the nicest month.
Okay, I'm gonna do one more, and this is kind of my favorite one. So, Satt ósatt, you're doing very well so far. In order to donate a penis to the Iceland Phallological Museum, it must be at least 5 inches long.
Oh, does it have to be? Okay, so if you donate a penis that is shorter than 5 inches, it won't make it to the museum.
Yeah, they won't take it.
They won't take it. I'm gonna say true on this.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So that's true. So the Iceland Phallological Museum is kind of amazing, and they say it's because of an old Icelandic folktale. There's a woman and she tried to divorce her husband, and she said it was because his penis was too short. And so the judge was like, well, what is an acceptable legal penis size? And she said, well, it needs to be at least 5 inches. So for a while, it became like the legal penis size in Iceland was at least 5 inches.
Okay. I need now, Jess. Now I learned something new, but I need to look this up.
I'm gonna send you the stuff I was reading.
Yeah, and I don't know if they made this up or if this is a real story.
It could be made up, but there's two criteria for the Phallological Museum to take your penis donation. And the first is that it needs to be at least 5 inches long based on an old Icelandic folktale. And it has to have like a legal document that's signed by at least 3 witnesses.
Okay.
So I guess that does one of the witnesses have to be like the owner of said penis? I don't know. Because
oh my God, yeah.
There's even a documentary that came out a few years ago, and I forgot the name of it. I was reading about it a bit last night about 2 human men who wanted to donate their penises to the museum, but they had not died yet. One of the men was like 95 years old.
Yeah.
I think, it's called The Final Member.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I heard about this one. But it's not only human penises in there. It's like it's a whale penis, and like they are very scientific about this.
Apparently, the Phallological Museum, the only penis they didn't have was a human one. So they had been trying to get like a human penis. So these 2 men were like, well, I'll give you mine when I die. And
Yeah.
so there was
Yeah.
this documentary about the two men that were kind of fighting it out to be the first human penis given to the Phallological Museum.
So now you have a mission when you go back to Iceland.
I
You're going to
do.
check in on this museum if they already have it.
Because I didn't go to the Phallological Museum. I think so. I went to Iceland in that magical month and a half in 2021 after we got our COVID vaccines. The vaccines had just come out, and we were so
Yeah.
happy. Before, I think it was the Delta COVID strain came out, and then lockdown happened again. So
Yeah.
like we were like, oh my, we had been in the house for like a year and a half, and we were like, oh my goodness, we just got our vaccines. This is amazing. We're gonna go travel. Iceland opened up, a bunch of other countries opened up their travel. And we went to Iceland in that wonderful like month and a half, and then we got back and it was like, okay, everybody's like mask things are coming back, like Delta is happening, and it was like, oh yeah, that
Yeah.
sucks. And then we were in the house for like another 2 years. You know how it was.
Yeah, I remember this, and there was this window where we had tourists again, because it was really strange during COVID to have no tourists in Iceland, as you've said, like not that many people.
Yeah.
So we have, I think we are around. There is around 360,000 people in Iceland, but we get 2 million tourists every year. So it's really different.
Yeah.
So
I was one of those tourists in that special time coming
Yeah.
and like seeing it was so nice because everyone was so happy. Everyone was so happy. There were so many other tourists. We met people from all over the world that were also coming to Iceland, and it was a magical. Maybe that's why I love Iceland so much, because it was like a magical time where we had so much hope that the COVID-19 we're getting it under control. We had all had because you had to have your vaccine before you could travel, and so we all had our vaccines, and we were just like, great, things are. And then it was like a month and a half later or something that it's like, wait, nope, Delta is happening. And then I think Omicron after that. And it's just like, well, shit.
Yeah. And then there was the time when you had to do the test before you travel.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. So what's funny, while we were in Iceland changed the law where you needed to have a test again before you could travel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had to go with a whole bunch of other people to this completely different place that was kind of, it was still in Reykjavik, but it was like on the outskirts of Reykjavik. And we were all just in a line to get our test the day before we left. And we didn't have to do that before we went in, because we just had to show that we had our vaccine. And and I think the last day of one of the tours, they were like, we need you all to wear masks again. Yeah. And the first part of the tours,
just caught like the
the very end of it. We were just like, oh well, okay. Yeah. But it was still a wonderful time, and we met some amazing people. And we also went, when we went, the volcano had started erupting, but it hadn't it hadn't done the amount of damage that it has done now. So I remember
it has done some significant damage now. I think in the past 3 years it has erupted 9 or 10 times or something. And it's like they had to evacuate 5,000 man village again and again.
Yeah, we were walking, and our guide was like, I actually don't think where you're walking right now is going to be here in 2 months. And we were just like, oh shit,
lava.
That sounds wild. That is wild. And we got to see a bit of the actual eruption. It was from a scientific standpoint, it was very cool, but it was also like, oh damn, this is if this keeps going, which it did, it's not going to be good for the folks that live very close. Because you could like look over here and see the volcano, and then you could look over here and see one of the villages.
Yeah. And it's gone, the lava has gone over the road again and again. And it's like, okay, that's then when it cools down, they plow through it again, put the road on top of it again.
Very resilient folks. It's like,
you're
this is
right.
my house.
It's like,
this is my house.
Yeah, there is no other option. You just you live with those natural, like this nature forces and those natural hazards.
And you can't stop it. Like
there's literally
nothing.
You have to come up with solutions.
There's nothing on Earth that is strong enough to keep lava from flowing. It is wild.
But they've actually been building those kind of protection like mountains, like so that the lava wouldn't flow right into the Blue Lagoon.
Oh, yeah, they're trying to save that.
Yeah,
I don't blame them. Blue Lagoon is amazing.
Defenses around it.
My skin never felt so good after I came out of the Blue Lagoon.
Oh, yeah.
After soaking we were there for like 3 hours. I was all pruny. It was wonderful.
It was wonderful. It's a wonderful place. It's a one of a kind place.
Well, Stefanía, you have won the game. Congratulations.
Thank you. You were so easy on me.
Oh.
Giving me things that I know.
Well, I just think that Iceland has such amazing facts that seem like they were untrue, but all of them were true. Like every single one of them were true. And so I was like, so that's my little trick on you, that they're surprised they were all true. But I know that it's getting time that I need to let you go. But I want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been so much fun. It's been great just to see you again and chat, because I haven't seen you in a couple of months. So it's awesome just to see you. So where can our listeners find you if you want them to find you? If you're like, you don't find me, that's also fine.
So, you know what? Since I've been listening to you, Jess, and it's again, likewise, it's so great to chat with you, see you again. I hope to see you very soon again.
Yeah.
But as I've been listening to you, I'm on Blue Sky.
Yes, Blue Sky. Blue Sky is the best.
Yes, I'm on Blue Sky. I have a profile. I'm not very, I don't post a lot of things, but I'm on LinkedIn as Stefanía Guðrún Halldórsdóttir. So there's a challenge for people. So you find me on LinkedIn.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to promote? Maybe some games that are out from the company that you run?
And I think people should check out Hunt the Call of the Wild. It is way more interesting to play a hunting simulation game than people think. It's a fantastic community in this game. Just want to talk about the community. It's just great to see people enjoy the things you put out, just like we spoke about before.
I used to get a lot of Hunter Call of the Wild, even though our office in New York weren't some of the devs that were working on Hunter. Since we were the US office, we would get a lot of the fan mail, and folks, I would always try to scan it and send it to the Hunter team, because folks would draw out full maps, and they would a lot of things from kids saying that they play with their family, and that's how they and their dad bond. And I was like, this is so nice.
Yeah, it is. And it's a beautiful game. It's fantastic community, beautiful game. I really like it. It's one of the reasons why I joined Avalanche. I love this game. And of course we have other games that are fantastic, like Generation Zero, and The Angler is a fishing simulator. And then we have some games in production that I'm really looking forward to.
Can't really talk about yet, but maybe when they come out, I'll have you back.
Yeah, when they come out,
we can chat about it.
You're gonna be proud of us.
I can't wait. I'm really excited, because there's some things that I worked on that we can't talk about at that game, that company, that I would love to see in the wild. But you can also follow me, like we said, on Blue Sky. I am at Cake Tease. That's CAKETEASE.bluesky.social. On Instagram, I'm cake_tease. And again, that's not a sexual thing. I used to be a cake decorator. I'm not even talking about Twitter anymore. I've deactivated my account on Twitter, which felt so good. So my Twitter account is now gone. Bye. And I don't at all miss it. It's great. So follow me on Blue Sky and we can chat. So thank you so much for listening to Stupid Little Games. Please Follow or subscribe. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Just look for Stupid Little Games. If you liked it, please consider giving us a review. It really helps us out a lot. We're still kind of a new podcast. We've gotten some really good reception, but the more reviews we get, the more like algorithms we get put into, and maybe it gets shown to more people that like video games. That would be awesome. So yeah, just a little review, or even just putting in a couple of stars if you are so inclined would be great. So this podcast is hosted and executive produced by me. I'm Jess Pardue. The amazing logo and theme song are by the multi-talented Bayard Russell. Final editing and audio engineering are by Gabe Koski, the only person I've ever known to fail a personality test. So I'll see you next Tuesday. Goodbye.